everyone. Welcome to our little roundtable discussion here. This is going to be about parenting through challenges, specifically the challenges that we're all feeling right now due to the quarantine. My name is Bonnie Barnes, and I have here with me Brittany Gast and Jordyn Mueller. And I'll just talk a little bit about why I wanted to do this video and then introduce us as I go through that. So I am a mom. I have 3 kids. We homeschool. And I'm also the children's ministry director at our church. The 3 of us ladies all go to Arise Church. And so as I was praying about children's ministry at Arise and where the Lord would really lead me to continue ministry during this time, I really felt my perspective widening when it comes to children's ministry to really be a family ministry, and that I needed to include more outreach to parents. So as I was praying about how that should look, one of the things the Lord brought to my mind was you, Jordyn, and your involvement in mental health. Jordyn is a counselor. She specifically specializes in children and play therapy. So I just felt the Lord leading me to do this video with the 3 of you ladies. Jordyn and her husband Gabe attend Arise, and they're very involved in ministry at our church. They serve on the worship team. They have a little girl named Selah who has the sweetest little smile. And like I said, Jordyn is a mental health counselor, and I just really appreciate you joining us this morning, Jordyn, to talk about some of the parenting challenges that we're dealing with right now. And then Brittany Gast is a dear friend of mine. She and her husband, Robert, partner with me in leading the children's ministry at Arise. They're our children's pastors, and they're just such a fun family. And I just value Brittany's friendship so much, and she's such a source of insight and encouragement to me as a mom, a fellow homeschool mom too. So thank you ladies for joining, and I'm just gonna jump right in and we can start discussing. I have about 4 or 5 different topics I just wanted to talk about with you, and we can just share perspectives based on our experience, based on our families, our experience in ministry and in our professions as well. So my first question is about the emotions that our kids are feeling right now. What is going through our kids' heads? I think that as parents, sometimes it's hard to really empathize, put ourselves in our kids' shoes fully, and really think about what it is that they're thinking and struggling with. I kind of had this happened the other day because, we're a homeschool family, and the change for us in this quarantine isn't as dramatic as it is for other families whose kids are, they go to public school and their worlds have completely turned upside down. So I kind of assumed that my kids were, missing their friends, missing play dates, missing being able to go to the park and things like that. But it wasn't something my kids were really talking about too much. And so we sat down the other day and we were working on this time capsule. We're putting together a time capsule for COVID-19. And we're filling out this paper, and I was working with my son, he's 6, and it was asking, what are you missing the most right now? And he didn't really have an answer, and so I started kind of probing, like, well, are you missing your friends? We haven't been able to see friends and family. And he suddenly just started sobbing uncontrollably. I was like shocked. I was like, what's going on? What's wrong? And he was just like, he could barely talk. And I was like, Levi, are you sad because you're missing your friends? You're missing your family? He was like, yeah. And he started talking about it. But it was a sad moment. But I think more than anything, I was just shocked that he was feeling these intense emotions about the situation that we're in and not getting to see his friends and family. And I just think that that's so, like, as parents, it kind of, we kind of need that reminder to really think about how our kids are feeling and try to draw out some of those emotions. So Brittany, have you had any kind of experiences where you feel like you're seeing some different emotions than normal from your kids? How do you think they're dealing with this? Do they seem like they're okay, or do they have like, is it apparent that they're struggling?
Um, like you said, we're a homeschool family, so we're home most of the time, other than occasional play dates and outings. But I have noticed Brielle asks a lot, why can't we go play with friends? Or why can't we see, or why can't they come over? And they get tired of each other
Mhm.
together, siblings, so um, I'm one to I really like watch their body language and their tone and their attitude, and I kind of pay attention to that. And that way, when I notice okay, this isn't working, let's change it up. Let's go for a walk. Roxan's 3, so he's really like high strung and active, and so I'm like, let's go for a bike ride, or I just try to keep them active, playing outside. Whenever I do see that those things are coming up or becoming a problem, or maybe they're struggling with certain things. I haven't really had any like breakdowns or anything with them yet. Just the normal, I think, of when can we play with our friends? Why can't we see our friends? Things like that. So, and I just try to keep them, when this is all over, we'll plan a big play date, or, and get them excited and looking forward to when we can do that again.
Yeah. So, Jordyn, I think like depending on the ages of our kids and their personalities, it can be really hard for our kids to vocalize and label what's going on in their heads, and what they're feeling. So, what are your thoughts about what they could be feeling right now, and ways for us as parents to bring that out and help them talk about it?
Yeah, I think that's such a great question. I wanted to touch on just the example that you gave with Levi. You really just created space. You created space for whatever he was feeling. And you said you probed, but it sounds like you were just really present. And then he expressed what was really going on. And just for parents to be that safe place is everything. And it might show up in unique ways. I mean, think about being adults. Our feelings show up in really unique ways when we're carrying a lot. So I think some of the feelings are feelings that parents might be experiencing too. So fear, especially if a child is already prone to a little bit of anxiety. What if I get this virus, this weird virus I keep hearing about? I don't know what that means. Confusion, loneliness, not being with their friends. I mean, we're biologically wired for connection. And there's only so much connection that we can get virtually. And so just missing their friends, any type of fun event that they're now missing out on that they've been thinking about, those are significant for kids. And so even that field trip is something that they might have been waiting for. And I think just sadness. So it could be grief, it could just be sadness. And I also think for parents, just a lot of exhaustion, especially if they're working from home. And then they're also, managing these school schedules, trying to keep the house clean and in order. It's just a lot. And so I think there's a variety of emotions just happening in the home.
Yeah.
So creating that space just to be able to express that. Parents also to model what that looks like, to say, hey, mommy's been feeling a little bit overwhelmed. I wonder if you're feeling that way too. I wonder if we can talk about that. And then ways to just express it, like you mentioned before, just age appropriate ways. So for a little one who doesn't have the ability to really put words to their feelings, children communicate through their play. So they can communicate. You can set up some toys at home and just do some non-directive play with your child. Just a piece of paper and crayons. Hey, can you draw a picture of how big those feelings are, or what those feelings look like? Or can you pick a toy in the home that really expresses what's kind of going on inside? And then for older ones, just journaling. And then I was going to mention later just some games or activities you can do with the older ones that would be helpful too.
Yes, I would love to hear your recommendations on those. So I think that's just so good. So just a reminder for parents that our kids, even if they may or may not be showing it, or they may be showing it in a different way than what we're expecting that they would show it, but they're probably dealing with some emotions at some level over what's happening. And so just to take the time, be intentional about taking the time to be present with them. I loved what you said about that, just creating a safe space for them to talk about their feelings. I think that's really good. And my next thing I wanted to talk about was behavior issues and challenges that parents could be facing right now. This is a big one, and there's a lot of layers within this, but I'm thinking probably one of the big things parents are dealing with right now with this huge shift with now having to do virtual school, and parents are also working from home. I'm thinking that, power struggles are probably coming up a lot more than normal as we're trying to manage all these extra things from home, and home life just looks completely different for a lot of families. How do we as parents get our kids to follow through, to obey, to get their chores done, to do their schoolwork? We're not we're not parenting experts, but we're all moms, and we're passionate about kids and families and building up children and families. And we also all have deep love for the Lord, and our faith is so foundational to our parenting and our family life. So I'm just hoping that we can offer some perspective from our own homes when it comes to power struggles and challenging behavior. I was talking to Pastor D a week or so ago, and she made this really incredible statement that I think she said Dr. Stephen Galoza had said to her, which is that times of hardship and pressure are really just revealing the cracks in our lives that are already there. And I think that is such a powerful thing to think about, because it lets you understand that when you're in a hard time, a challenging time, it's not that it's necessarily creating all these new conflicts. It's just the pressure is revealing these cracks in your life and your relationships that were really already there. And so this is really an opportunity as we see these things come to the surface, how we can deal with things like power struggles. And, I have 3 kids at home. I'm trying to get them to do their virtual school, and they just want to play all day. You don't want to be involved and help out with the chores, help out around the house while I'm trying to, manage work and all of this. So just interested to talk about that a little bit, and talk about how do we deal with these issues, and look at the deeper part of what's going on in their hearts. Brittany, do you have any insight about that when it comes to?
Yes. Well, I have found, and this is mainly through trial and error and reading the kids, reading their responses to what I'm asking them to do, that my kids, and I don't know if it's for all kids, but when I've done studies and readings and research on kids and their ages and what they're going through and how they respond to things at their different ages, with the power struggle, if I just tell my kids, hey, I need you to clean your room, or hey, it's time to do schoolwork, they're not, if they're already playing, they're not going to respond to that very well. I have found that making a visual list for them or an order of things to do, they respond better. Or if I give them like a notice, like, hey, in 30 minutes, or you can play for a few minutes longer, and then we're going to start schoolwork, or then we're going to start chores. Or if I just tell them ahead of time and they can prepare, then it's easier for them and it's less of a power struggle for the both of us. And finding the right timing, I think, that's going to work for your family. And every family is different. Every kid is different. So, you don't want to start doing schoolwork at lunchtime when they're going to be hungry, or maybe tired in the afternoon from a full day. So just different things like that I have found that has worked to lessen that power struggle.
I think that is so good. And I think what you're saying is to really like put yourself in their shoes. If they're in the middle of, if you were in the middle of something and someone came and said, hey, I need you to stop that right now and start doing this other thing, you'd be like kind of thrown off too. So just remembering that our kids, they're people too, and put yourself in their position if you want them to, if you don't want to have a power struggle when it comes to getting schoolwork or chores done, like you said, prepare them in advance, talk about it, let them have some say in, when they're going to do it or how much time it should take. Give them some leadership. Give them the opportunity to take some incentive to really take a role with it too. But and so we're going to talk about schedules a little bit too. That's actually my next topic because it ties in with that. But Jordyn, what do you think about, when parents are faced with power struggles and trying to get our kids to do virtual school or chores or whatever, and we're getting pushback? Are there thought patterns or anything that you can suggest that as parents that would help us maintain self-control? Because it can be so easy when our kids are like screaming, no, I don't want to do, and they flare up, then our tendency is to flare up too and like meet that same emotional response, but really that is so counterproductive. How can we navigate through things like power struggles and these issues that could be coming up right now as parents in a healthy way?
Yeah, I think that's such a good question. And I think it's the most challenging thing that parents really go through, because you want your child just to be doing their assignments, and you're trying to manage your own schedule, and it can just be really challenging. But I think that children need to feel in control to a degree, just like adults do. They need to feel a healthy amount of power. And there are certain developmental stages where they just need to feel autonomous and like they have a voice. And so I think there's really a balance with that. And I think the approach really depends on your child and their unique needs and personality. But I really love choices. And so I think first parents need to kind of step back and ask themselves, what's the why behind why this is really important? So an example I give to parents with little ones, is it really, really important that they eat carrots, or is it important that they get veggies in their tummy to nourish their bodies? Can they have a choice? Little choices for little kids and big choices for big kids. So can they choose between carrot slices or green beans? And just giving them that little bit of power can really empower them and can really just de-escalate a power struggle. And so for a teenager, do they really have to do it right there that very second? or you can choose to finish your assignment right now, or you can choose to have 10 minutes outside just to kind of get some fresh air and regulate yourself, and then you can come back and choose to do it. Which one do you want to do? So I think that's a really big part of it. And then I think another piece is just parents being gentle with themselves, but also aware of what they're feeling. So are they approaching their child out of a place of stress versus a place of calm? And maybe the parent really, maybe I just need a moment to step outside and have a mom timeout, take my parent hat off, take a deep breath, regulate myself, and then approach it. And then I can approach it a little bit differently. There's a rule of thumb I talk about often with parents, be the thermostat, not the thermometer. So in control parents are thermostats. They regulate the energy in the room and they bring the calm. Out of control parents, which we all can be sometimes, so there's no judgment, are thermometers. And that rule of thumb comes from CPRT, which I really love, child-parent relationship therapy, but it's just a good visual to keep in the back of your mind. And then when you find yourself being that thermometer, then that's a good moment for you to practice some self-care, step away, and then jump back in. So when you do parent, you can be intentional.
That is so good. I love that. And I love the idea of really respecting your child as a person and thinking about their feelings. I've been reading a lot about grace-based parenting lately, and also the idea of creating a home where there's a culture of honor, and how you show honor and respect to your child, they're going to learn and how to relate back to you that way. You have to set the tone yourself, and you have to set the model yourself. You can't react to your child's outbursts, screaming and out of control and arguing, because then you're reinforcing that behavior. So like you said, taking a moment to step back is so important, and also taking the time to apologize if you do blow up and lose it. Just kind of saying, I'm sorry, I shouldn't have done that, and I'm really teaching you the wrong way to approach discussions. I understand that, you might not want to do this right now, and I understand. How can we work together to make sure that you get this done, because it does have to get done? Can we split it into 2 parts? Can we do some now? Can you do some later? And like you said, like giving them a role and some autonomy, independence, where they can have a say in what's going on. I think I've seen that makes a huge difference when it comes to homeschooling. There's times when my kids are normally, in a routine, and they're doing what they're supposed to do, but then there's times when my daughter just doesn't want to do her work that morning. And I'm okay with saying, you know what, why don't you do night school tonight? Maybe when everything, time of dinner, maybe daddy can work with you in your room, and you guys can do night school tonight, and you can do it that day, time today to have a break. I think we have to, if you don't do that sometimes and give your child a say, you're just going to stir rebellion in their hearts if all they know is this is the way it is and you have to fall in line. They don't feel valued and they don't feel honored in your home, and it's just going to be detrimental to the relationship overall. And I think that's another thing to keep in mind when you look at these behavior issues. Maybe it's lying, or maybe it's just lack of motivation. It could be different things, but really as parents, we can't solve all of our kids' issues. We can't be the answer for their every problem, but what we can do is try to step back and analyze what is the root of this issue. I see the fruit. The behavior is really the fruit, but there's always a deeper heart issue involved. And when you see the behavior, you always have to ask yourself, what's going on in their heart that's leading to this behavior that I'm seeing? So I think that's our job as parents. We can't solve their every problem and every issue, but we can help. We can be intentional about thinking through the behaviors that we're seeing and what could be going on at the root of the problem, and help them, give them a voice, and let them talk about it with you, and come to some solutions that work for everyone. And I think if you create that partnership with your children, you'll be so much more successful at getting them to really do the things that they need to do when it comes to school and chores and everything else. And like you said too, just asking for help if you need help as a parent, like mental health counselors and people like that, friends, people from church, family, reaching out if you can't get to the root of the problem on your own and you're just kind of at a loss. I've done that with Brittany. I've taken my daughter to a counselor here in town when we were dealing with some behavior issues, and I just could not wrap my head around, why is she having these meltdowns? Why is she losing it at the end of the day? And I was like, it ended up being something that I really had to analyze really hard and look at what are her needs. What needs does she have that aren't being met? Her love language is different from my love language. And so it took me talking to other friends, bringing her to a counselor, and really stepping back and analyzing the fruit of what I was seeing and trying to get to the root of the issue. And, it turned out that it was something for her. Her big love language is touch. And for me, that's not one of my love languages. But I think that probably is something that is a huge love language for a lot of kids.
Yeah.
You don't feel that you're meeting that need. And it's hard because as parents, you get kind of like touched out really quickly when you're with your kids all day, every day, and you have toddlers and you have babies and you have older kids in them. But just taking the time to think about, am I meeting their needs emotionally, spiritually, mentally, physically, because a lot of times these behaviors that we see when it comes to defiance and power struggles, there's a deeper issue going on. And as parents, our job is to step back and figure out what the heart of the issue and what's really going on.
Yeah. Can I add one thing with that, Bonnie? I just love that all behavior is a form of communication. So even the most challenging behaviors for parents are still your child's trying to communicate something. So like you said, just stepping back and looking at what's the heart, what's really going on. Are they feeling a little bit lonely? Are they hungry? Are they overtired? They didn't sleep well last night? Because it could be something really simple like that, or it could be that there's a lot of emotion going on that they are struggling to process. But really just connecting with the heart first, connect and then redirect. So I think that's an important piece too.
Yeah, that's so good. Yeah, just keeping in mind the things that as as parents ourselves, when we're tired and we're hungry, we're not at our best either. And so don't expect different from your kids. You have to apply the same grace that you want applied to you.
Yeah.
To your child. And really, if you don't, you're undermining God's work of grace in their hearts. I loved this quote from this book I just read where Dr. Kimmel said, grace can't just be an abstract concept that you talk about in your home. Your kids have to see it in practice. Otherwise, it undermines the work of God's grace in their hearts. And I think that is so, so powerful. And it's just like what you're saying. Grace isn't about being permissive. It's about being intentional in your parenting and understanding your kids' needs and parenting from a place of meeting their needs first and not focused on behavior modification, really.
Yeah.
So we just have a few more minutes left here. I wanted to touch on schedules because that's something that came up as I asked for feedback from other moms. Schedules, some families like schedules, some families don't. I think different things work for different people, but I mean, as a lot of parents are working from home right now, I think trying to manage everything, it feels like a schedule might be a good tool for parents to utilize. But how can we do that in a way that respects our child's abilities, doesn't overwhelm and actually add to more stress, but is actually a tool that we can use to help our day flow? Brittany, what do you think about schedules? Is that something that you guys use at home with your family?
I would say we're kind of both. We kind of do a schedule for some things that are, more of a priority, or, that have to be done before other things, or So for some things we use a schedule, and for others it's just a routine, or for some days might be different also than others. Some days might be more scheduled, and other days might be just a rhythm, depending on what we have to do for that day. So I kind of make my to-do list, I guess, for me as a mom and for the kids. But I make a to-do list not for everything to get done. And I realize that there are a few different ways you can look at a to-do list, because I had a different perspective than my husband had on his to-do list. I tend to, I have to write things down, or I'll forget, or it won't get done, or it'll get lost in, everything else. So I make a list of things that has to get done here or there this week, next week, just things that are important to do. But my husband's view on the to-do list was, I have this long list of everything that has to get done today, an 8-hour workday. And I'm like, no, you're stressing yourself out. So I found that, but with kids, things just didn't seem to, when you try to make a schedule, for us anyways, 9 o'clock we're going to start school, and as soon as you get into it, it's like, I'm hungry. Okay, well, now it's snack time, so it's just kind of, with being at home and with kids, a routine seems to work better. But then other things like, if I didn't set a time and a schedule for schoolwork, then other things would last a little longer. And so other things that were important, that were priorities, would get pushed off. So I have learned that, schoolwork, okay, in the morning is free time, story time, things like that, to get up and moving and woken up, and then, schoolwork starts at 9, and set things like that on a schedule. And like when I have my office work or my things I have to do, that's the kids' time to have screen time or do educational apps on the iPad. So I try to schedule my important things I have to do with some sort of quietness or peace. And that's when I would do my things that have to get done while they're doing their screen time, things that they like to do, as an incentive for doing what they had to do first, like schoolwork and things like that. So that's kind of how our days are. I think it's important too, though, like I have to have my mom time, either in the morning, quiet time reading a devotional or the Bible. So some mornings look different than others, but other days I try to, okay, this is mommy's time. You can sit here with me while I'm reading and you can read, or you can go play quietly in your room, but mommy needs this time, this quiet time. But also I like to work out, so I try to make sure I plan that in throughout the week to stay active, and it's just like a de-stressor for me also, and it's something that I like to do for myself. So I think that's important as moms working and being home with kids. You have to fill your love tank also, and make time for yourself so that you can better parent, I think. And not only parent, but be a wife too, when your husband comes home. So that's important to schedule those things in for yourself as well.
Yeah, that is so true. And thinking about, when you're doing a schedule, like you said, you have to think about, physical needs, anticipate, do they always want a snack, at this time in the morning? And do you feel like you just gave them breakfast? Okay, well, fine. Plan to have a snack at that time. Just anticipate it and
Right.
fit into the other things that you need to do at that time. But your schedule really needs to meet not just like your to-do list, like you're saying, it has to incorporate like mom's downtime, mom's physical needs, my child's physical needs, their mental needs. Am I making time to really fill their cup and make them feel loved? Am I making time to be intentional and making sure that they can all have at least a little bit of one-on-one time with me, or something that's a meaningful time that we can build our relationship together? You have to factor in all of those things in a schedule, because if it's just like 9 o'clock, do your work, 10 o'clock, unload the dishwasher, and you're never really giving your child like ways to have downtime, or yourself have downtime, or ways to connect with each other. I mean, that's the most important part of our day. Like, the academic stuff has to be done. They have to get their schoolwork done. But really, if you step back and look at it, these days are short. The time with our kids are short. We want to be intentional with building relationships with our kids above all else. We want to pour the love of Jesus into their little hearts and point them towards God, and we want to build relationships with them. So if you're going to make a schedule with those things in as the foundation of your day, and then you can add in these other things that, yes, have to be done, but just try to remain flexible with your kids. And like we said, give them a say, let them have some independence, and that, let them collaborate with you on a schedule, and let them have some say in how they think that their day should flow as much as possible. Um, so we are recording that we did with Jordyn, cut off, so she hopped off, but Brittany and I just want to hop back on here and close out the discussion. One of the questions that we had talked about that we just didn't have time to get to was about moving forward post-quarantine, and whether there's going to be challenges for our kids in that process, things like anxiety or fear. I think this might be more of an issue for some kids than others. I think depending on our kids' personalities, I think I can see this being an issue for my kids when it comes to like social anxiety and fear, because we've been home for so long, and we kind of been isolated ourselves from everyone. I think when it's time to go back to dance and go back to church and go back to our normal routines, there is going to be somewhat of a transition. So Jordyn is going to share a little bit of insight as to that, moving forward post-quarantine. She's going to follow up in a post that we can share along with the video that you can read through. But I just wanted to ask for your thoughts on that too, Brittany. Challenges as our kids feel some emotional, maybe anxieties as we try to go back to normal once quarantine is over. And they can go back to church, and they can go back to dance and all these things. I feel like it's not going to be a super smooth transition for my kids. How do you feel that it's going to look for you guys?
Well, my kids have already kind of, spoke about how excited they are to go back to church and to do their things. I know Roxon is excited, but he is younger, so if we did have any troubles, I think it might be the separation anxiety of him going to his own class without mommy and daddy, because he has had both of us home for so long now, and he hasn't had to leave us. So that might be something he might have to we might have to work through with him, but it's to be expected. So where we can prepare.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's important to prepare them as well for things to come, and just maybe start talking about it now, and preparing them for it now, so they know what to expect, and they can kind of get their feelings out ahead of time. Might help. I know that helps with my kids if I help to prepare them ahead of time for things. And with Brielle, she's mentioned about being shy, going back to Wednesday night church, just because she hasn't seen her friends in a while. So that might be something we'll have to work through, but just letting them know, I think it's important, and it helps them. Just letting them know that their feelings are being heard, and that their feelings do matter, and it's okay. We all have feelings as parents, as children.
Right.
It's okay to feel shy or scared or angry, and that it's okay.
Yeah.
And I think just acknowledging that with them and working through it with them helps them to get through it easier, and maybe quicker. So just comforting them and letting them know that it's okay, that they feel the way that they do, and working through it with them to kind of help them through it.
Yeah, I think that's so good. Just like being prepared that your kids might have a little bit of a transition time, talking, like you said, talking to them about it beforehand to prepare them, and then just being open to discussing, their fears and their challenges. And if they, like we talked about a little bit before with Jordyn, if you're that safe space for them, she made the point that kids are really resilient, and if they have a good relationship with you and are comfortable talking to you, and you are that safe place for them, then they'll be able to move forward. Kids are very resilient, and they'll be able to get back into their routine, but for some kids more than others, there may just be a little bit of a transition with some anxieties and worries and fears. And so just being parents, being willing to talk to them about those kinds of things, as we can see that they're dealing with it, I think is important. So Jordyn is going to follow up with some more insight on that specific topic. She's going to post along with the video some of her thoughts on that. So I'm looking forward to hearing what she has to say. And she specializes in play therapy, so she's an awesome resource for us to hear about developmental toys that are awesome for our kids, activities and different items like that we can have on hand to help our kids to talk to us about feelings, to improve their mental health and things like that. So I'm excited to hear what she has to say. She has some specific recommendations to share, so she's going to post that as well. So I'm just so thankful to you, Brittany, and to Jordyn for joining me this morning to talk about these things. Like I said, we're not parenting experts, but we do love the Lord, and we love our families, and we love being able to minister to families and children professionally and in a ministry aspect. So my hope is that this video is something that will encourage you and just give you some insight. And Brittany and I are here for you if you need to reach out. If you just need to talk to somebody else and get some ideas. I've done that multiple times with friends and Brittany when I'm just stuck and having a hard time. Sometimes you just need a godly friend who is going to speak words of life into you and encourage you in your motherhood journey. So we want to be that for you guys, and that's a big part of the mission behind the TLC DeLand Moms group that she and I and Andrea Ashley and Sarah Cameron all administrate together. We want to be that for you guys. So we're here if you want to reach out and talk more about any of these things. You just need a friend to talk to. We're here for you guys. So I hope you guys have a fantastic day, and looking forward to hearing your thoughts in the future when you get to watch the video.
Yes.